My dear sir, your letter reached me just a few days ago. I want to thank you for your confidence in me. What more can I say? I cannot speak to the quality of your poems, for any critical inclination is alien to me. Nothing is less relevant to a work of art than the judgments of other people. Whether positive or negative, they will always reflect some measure of misunderstanding. Things are never as easily grasped and expressed as people assume. Most experiences are unsayable. They become real to us in a space no word has entered. And least sayable of all are works of artistic expression which live on, full of mystery, compared to our brief lives. Those are the first lines from a letter dated February 17, 1903, written by the poet Rainer Maria Rilke. Today, we will be looking at Letters to a Young Poet, which is a set of 10 letters that Rainer Maria Rilke wrote to a young man named Franz Kappes. Rainer Maria Rilke was born on December 4th, 1875, in the city of Prague, which was in the Austro-Hungarian Empire at the time, but it is now the capital of modern-day Czechia. His parents, whose marriage was short-lived, enrolled him in a military academy in 1886. The military academy turned out to be a very poor fit for Rilke, and he was forced to prematurely leave due to poor health. But thanks to the guidance of his paternal uncle, he was able to find academic success and enrolled in the prestigious Charles University in Prague. From this point forward, he had collections of his poetry published, and thus his career as a poet began. Between 1902 and 1908, Rilke had correspondences with an officer cadet named Franz Kappes. Kappes reached out to Rilke originally to have his poetry evaluated and to seek advice on his career path, as he was trying to decide between literary and military careers. The 10 letters give us great insight into Rilke's philosophy on life, and the work is still very popular today, as it provides some very fascinating perspectives on common life themes. In this video, we will be examining 3 themes in Letters to a Young Poet, which are self, solitude, and sorrow. Inner self. Nothing is less relevant to a work of art than the judgments of other people. Whether positive or negative, they will always reflect some measure of misunderstanding. Things are never as easily grasped and expressed as people assume. Going back to this very first quote, we can clearly see how Rilke felt about outside opinions regarding works of art. Others' attitude towards a painting, a piece of music, a play, or a novel can vary in so many different ways depending on the person giving the opinion, and so many of us get caught up in what others think of our work. Rilke is saying that we have to forego those opinions, move beyond them, and ask ourselves what we truly think of our own creation. One of the key points in this quote is the part where he states, whether positive or negative, they will always reflect some measure of misunderstanding. So it's not just the criticisms that need to be taken with a grain of salt, but also the compliments. A work of ours might receive positive remarks from people around us, but if deep down we see it as a subpar outcome of ours, then the compliments really don't matter too much in the end. Now, since you've invited me to advise you, I will ask you to give all that up. You are looking outward, and now you must avoid that at all costs. No one can advise and help you. No one. There's only one thing to do. Go into yourself. Ask yourself why you pursue this thing you call writing. Look and see if its roots draw from the deepest place in your heart. Ask yourself if you would die if you were forbidden to write. This quote says it all. Rilke highly suggests that we go inward for the true answers, rather than outward. We are often told that we are our own worst critic, but Rilke is trying to tell us all that we are actually the only worthy critic of our works. We must all spend more time seeking answers inside of us, rather than seeking advice from the outside. Our inner self is where we find true purpose and motivation as well. So many of us choose a life path based on what people around us say is the optimal path. Of course, many of us don't have too many choices based on life circumstances, but even then, Rilke is urging us to make time and space to ask ourselves what our true calling is. What is our true purpose and motivation in life? A poem works when it springs from necessity. Therefore, dear sir, I have no other counsel for you than this. Go into yourself and explore the depths from which your life flows. There you will find the answer to the question, is it essential that I write? Perhaps it is clear. You are called to be an artist. If that is so, take the fate upon yourself and bear it, its burden and its greatness, without asking for any other reward. Solitude. Works of art arise from an infinite aloneness and cannot be reached by criticism. Only love can touch them and do them justice. Based on the fact that Rilke believed in seeking answers inwards instead of outwards, it is no surprise that he cherished solitude. After all, it would be nearly impossible for us to ask ourselves deep, difficult questions if we don't have time to ourselves. Solitude is imperative to this process. And if you, yourself, were in a prison whose walls allow no sound from the world to reach your senses, wouldn't you still have your childhood, that deep well of memories? Gaze into those depths. Try to sift the lost sensations. Your aloneness will expand and become a shadowy dwelling place, allowing the noise of others to pass by far overhead. True solitude is absolutely necessary in order to access everything we have inside, especially when it comes to creativity. This sentiment by Rilke is perhaps even more relevant today than it was a little over a century ago, with all of us having access to the internet on our devices. Distractions are ubiquitous today, and solitude is very hard to come by. Some of us have never experienced true solitude in our adult lives, where we are completely disconnected from everything but ourselves and nature. Rilke is showing us that there's a lot to be discovered in the state of perfect solitude. Gaze into those depths. Try to sift the lost sensations. This is how we can all pursue answers inward. But perhaps that is precisely the time when solitude ripens. Its ripening can be painful as the growth of a boy and sad like the beginning of spring. But don't let that confuse you. What is needed is only this: solitude. Great inner solitude. Going within and meeting no one else for hours. That is what one must learn to attain. Even in his lifetime, a time before the internet and constant distraction, Rilke admits that embracing solitude can be difficult for individuals. But he suggests that we must be able to get past the initial pain of solitude, as it is absolutely necessary for tapping into a part of us that we never knew about. Once we get past the initial boredom and agony, we will most likely feel content in our solitude, and after a while, we may even experience a feeling of euphoria. Rilke clearly sees solitude as a meaningful form of challenge in our lives. Therefore, dear sir, love your solitude and turn the distress it brings you into resonant laments. For you say that those close to you seem distant, and that shows that you are allowing more space around you. If what is close feels far, then your horizon has widened. Be glad for the way you are growing, which is your way, a way you cannot expect of others. Sorrow. Why would you want to exclude from your existence any unrest, any pain, any heaviness? For you don't know yet how these will shape you. Solitude can help us tap into our creativity and convictions, but Rilke also believes that it can help us deal with sorrow and suffering that we experience. Just as he saw solitude itself as a meaningful challenge, he thought that the pain and sorrow we experience in our lives are also meaningful when processed in a graceful manner. Rilke writes, "If it were possible for us to see further than our knowledge reaches, and yet a little beyond our intuitions, perhaps we would then bear our sorrows with greater trust than we do our joys. For these are the moments when something new enters us, something unknown. Our feelings go silent in shy captivity. Everything within us steps back. A quiet arises. This new thing that no one knows stands revealed in our midst, hushed." I believe that almost all our sorrows are moments of tension that we fear might cripple us because we are no longer in touch with our banished feelings. Now we are alone with this strangeness that has appeared. Everything trusted and familiar is, for a moment, taken from us, and we find ourselves caught in what we cannot stop. That is also why the sorrow passes. The new in us, that which has come toward us, has entered our heart, is in its innermost chamber, it is in our blood. And we have not learned yet what it is. One could easily convince us that nothing has happened, yet we have changed, as a house changes when a guest has entered. In today's society, many of us are told that all suffering is bad. So many of us are taught to avoid any kind of sadness and misery. And when we do encounter a painful experience, many of us are taught to frame it in a way that makes it less painful to handle. Rilke thought that suffering is an invaluable part of everyone's life, and that if we can look at it straight in the eye, it will profoundly affect us for the better. Rather than us manipulating or transforming the sorrow, he wants the sorrow to transform us. And in order for us to do this properly, we must confront our suffering in complete solitude. Rilke states, "We cannot say what has entered. We may never know. But there are many indications that the future enters us in just this way, to transform itself within us long before it happens. That is why it is so important to be alone and attentive when you are sad, because the seemingly uneventful moment when our future steps in is so much closer to life than any loud occurrence that happens, as it were, from the outside. The more patient, quiet, and open we are towards sorrow, the deeper and truer does the new move into us and become our fate. Then when it happens, we recognize it as already related to us, and when on a later day, our culture experiences it too, it will seem as familiar as our own self. This is necessary. It is necessary to recognize that nothing alien befalls us, but only that to which our lives already belong. After all the views and concepts we have had to think through, we will eventually learn that what we call fate doesn't come to us from the outside. Facing sorrow alone can be an absolutely terrifying experience for many of us. We are often lost in such moments and fearful of what more might happen in the future. But Rilke strongly believes that these moments are the experiences that shape us the most. As he stated in the last quote, we must be patient, quiet, and open towards sorrow in order to process our emotions in the deepest and truest manner. In this way, we can let sadness transform us. We internalize the suffering, and it becomes a profound part of us. As we can see from all of his quotes in this video, he really did believe in the benefits of facing challenges, like asking ourselves difficult questions, practicing solitude, and confronting sadness. But why did he advocate for all of this, besides the fact that he thought it shaped our character in a positive way? Rilke believed in all of them so that we can learn to love. Love is difficult. For one person to care for another, that is perhaps the most difficult thing required of us, the utmost and final test, the work for which all other work is but a preparation. With our whole being, with all the strength we have gathered, we must learn to love. This learning is ever a committed and enduring process. This quote clearly demonstrates how serious Rilke was when it came to the concept of love. It's evident that he contemplated very seriously on how difficult the act of loving actually is, and he held it in very high regard. Rilke wrote these lines in a letter from 1904, when Franz Capus was 21 years old, and he expresses that young people throw themselves into romantic relationships before they are ready to love and don't know how to love properly. To love is not about merging. It is a noble calling for the individual to ripen, to differentiate, to become a world in oneself in response to another. It is a great, immodest call that singles out a person and summons them beyond all boundaries. Only in this sense may we use the love that has been given us. This is humanity's task, for which we are still barely ready. Rilke believed that individuals cannot handle the difficult task of loving someone unless they have experienced being in touch with their inner self, becoming comfortable with solitude, and are able to look at sorrows of life directly in the face. All of the topics mentioned so far are supposed to prepare us for the hardest, but possibly the most rewarding task of loving someone. The enigmatic allure of love is perhaps humanity's ultimate task. Allow me to end the video with one last quote. It is, as I have already said, ever the wish that you might find in yourself enough patience to bear your suffering, and enough simplicity to believe in yourself. May you gain more trust in what is difficult and in your solitude amid others. Furthermore, let life happen to you. Believe me, you can count on life in any case. Thank you for watching.